I'm doing great. I'm really excited to talk about entrepreneurship with you.
Dude, that's amazing. So we're going to talk a lot, and I'm very curious about a lot of things you're working on. It was hard to kind of narrow down. I always talk to people, and it's just like sometimes it's very obvious. People are like, "This is what they need to talk about, right? This is what they bring." And with you, it's like we could go a lot of different directions, right? And so I think we're going to do that. I think this is gonna be more of those a lot of different direction type things because I know also we want to talk about your experience around fear, right? And you just wrote a book about that, the fast forward mindset. That we want to get to and talk a little bit. So we got a lot to cover in a very short period of time. So if you're ready to rock and roll, let's do this thing.
I'll follow your lead.
All right, brother. All right. So the way we always start the show is let's just talk about you. Let's talk about who you are, what you do, kind of give the audience a sneak peek as far as what your life has looked like as an entrepreneur, what got you into entrepreneurship. I know you started in the law space, right? So I don't know if you were at that point an entrepreneur, I guess having your own practice. Just kind of give us a high level view of what that looked like for you.
Just going as far back as I can remember, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like when I was in like high school or middle school, even I'd go to like Office Depot and I'd walk into the aisles of Office Depot and pretend I was buying office supplies for my future business someday.
That's
that
awesome.
Was my fun.
That's
This is before like there was iPhones and iPads, and so I would do that kind of stuff.
yeah.
The thing was, and so then I would start reading. From there, I'd start reading Entrepreneur Magazine. I don't know if people even read Entrepreneur Magazine as a magazine anymore, but in the back of the magazine, there was all these franchises. It was like classifieds for franchises you can buy. And I used to imagine someday, cut out the ones that I would someday buy. And then when I graduated college, I remember thinking, this is why I'm so impressed with you and so many people who graduate and become successful. I remember thinking, I'm going to make 7 figures within 3 years.
Yeah.
5 years later, in my 4th sales job, I started to panic that I wasn't gonna be an entrepreneur, and just go. And so what did I do? I did what any successful entrepreneur would do. I did what my dad wanted me to do, and I went to law school. So that's how I became into the field. And then in law school is where I started a TV show. So this is in 2006. So it's before podcasting became what this is. And it was before YouTube just started that year.
It started 2005, right? YouTube, yeah. So brand new.
You couldn't even upload your own videos like you can now.
Wow.
So what I did was in New York City, there was a cable station where if you applied, you can have a free show for a half hour once a week. And I literally was doing video podcasts. I was interviewing. So in 2006, I was interviewing entrepreneurs because I'm a self-help addict like you.
Yeah.
And I have hundreds of or dozens or 100 plus entrepreneur books. And the one thing that I was clear about is they inspired me, but they didn't tell me how to start a business. And so I decided to interview entrepreneurs to figure out how to start a business within 1 year or less.
Yeah.
And that's how this whole thing started. That TV show, Interviewing Entrepreneurs, and I'm sure you can relate to this with your podcast, was literally, if you had to look at a timeline, that is where everything from that TV show on has put me on a trajectory of success and makes me realize how, and by the way, the book is the second level. More, look, all this, the more content you put out there, the more people you interview, the more connections you get, the more it leads to.
Yeah. Well, and I think the part that people don't realize, and I'm glad that you do, and this is something that I didn't expect that we would talk about, but I'm glad we are, because a lot of people, they're trying to, I want a mentor. Like I want people to teach me how to do this stuff. And they have, no real So the way I tell them is I'm like, look, that's what my show is, honestly. Like some of the big guests we've had on the show, like think about this. And I said this before, I'll say it again to you, but like, what would I have to do to get Damon John, Barbara Corcoran, Grant Cardone, Guy Kawasaki, Marie Forleo, Dave Asprey, like to get their individualized attention and their wisdom directed basically, to my audience, but I'm asking questions because of stuff that I want to know too, right? If I'm being totally honest, on my show. So, the thing is, it's like, how, in what world, in what modality would I have to be able to get their individualized attention for 45 minutes to an hour? Like, that's crazy, right? Yep. So people are seeking mentors and all these various things. Dude, go start an interview platform, have them on your show, because it's literally mentorship right there.
One of the first interviews I did was with Simon Sinek.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And this is 10 years ago. So
he wasn't Simon Sinek. Yeah.
He was exactly who he was. He just wasn't as famous.
Okay, sure.
He blew, I knew when I interviewed him. And in that interview, everything he's done, he said he was going to do.
That's crazy.
And it was like people like that. And by the way, from that interview, it was about overall almost close to 100. I put together 5 themes of success that from all different walks of life, these are the 5 things everyone had in common. And it's these 5 themes that I've followed the past 11 years that has helped me get to the where I'm at, and it's led to everything. So it, I listened intently and I tried.
Now, most of those people, do you still keep in touch with them, or is it like one of those things where they just came on your show and it's a one-off type thing?
Some of them, 100% I do, and some of them I do for a different reason.
Okay.
Because I told you that was the TV show was the path that led to all my success, or the path I'm on today. Is some of the interviews I interviewed were from Entrepreneurs Organization. Are you familiar with
EO? Yeah,
Entrepreneurs Organization?
Of course. Vern's he's been on the show. He founded EO, right? Yeah.
So Vern's been on the show and he endorsed my book. So exactly. So he started EO. And so a lot of the members in New York were in EO. I didn't have a business at the time. Every interview that I did, I remember thinking, if I ever can start a business, I want to join this organization. And a couple of years later, I had the opportunity to do that. You need $1 million to enter. $1 million to get into the accelerator program, which I qualified for.
Yep.
And I remember thinking someday I want to either start this organization like this or be president. And 10 years later, last year, I just finished June 30th. I was the president of the New York chapter. Which
is ridiculous, by the way. That's like I would feel like that's a huge thing for the New York chapter.
It took a lot of energy. Imagine being the CEO of $1 billion company and having a board of advisors, because every single entrepreneur on my board were successful entrepreneurs that you can only get that caliber. So I'll tell you I did it to have impact in the organization. Yeah. Secondly, it's the best leadership training that I've had in my life.
That's amazing.
It didn't make it easy. It didn't make it fun all the time, but it was transformational.
That's not a paid, that's like a volunteer type thing, right? Like you don't get paid for that role.
Yeah. You do not get paid.
But it's a major portfolio booster. I'm involved with a lot of those things. I get it, but it definitely is more work than people realize.
But I honestly, I can tell you a dozen different things that EO has given me millions of dollars in revenue.
Sure, you ROI'd for sure.
So I told you I'm moving to Barcelona next month for a year. I'm doing that because of EO, literally, because there's a chapter in Barcelona. There's 2 members who've already done it. Vern Harnish, who you mentioned, he lived in Barcelona for 8 years.
When I interviewed him, he was there, I think. Yeah. Is he still there?
No, he's back. Okay. But so indirectly, I'm going to Barcelona because of Vern, because he inspired the other EO members to do it. So it's just, life is like that. The decisions you make 6 years later can sort of lead to something different. And that's what's so cool about entrepreneurship.
We'll have to touch base on that, my friend, because my wife and I are really kicking around the idea of hey, we can work from wherever. We sell products online. Let's go live wherever the hell we want to for a while.
We have 3 kids and we're doing it. So you can definitely do it.
Well, and do it then too. That's awesome, man. All right, cool. So let's talk a little bit, because I know part of your story, and I was watching your TED Talk, which I'm going to link and you guys can check it out. Cool. But sounds like there was a lot of kind of conditioned fear in line with your story, right? And maybe I'm, I know you kind of got teased the whole oof thing. I think is what oof is what people called you, what have you. So how much of that played into, you talked about you had, 5 years as a salesperson, stuff like that. Was that part of the mindset that you had of one of fear of people criticizing you, fear of people teasing you, fear of how much did that play into that capacity in those early stages of your career, right? And kind of how did that evolve into you then writing a book that involves fear and overcoming fear?
So just to be clear, one of the things, so my best friend, who is one of the people who I called me oaf back then, he teases me right now because that wasn't such a big deal. I'm like, okay, whatever, dude. But the thing about oaf that was really, because the reason he says that, it didn't affect me in terms of being called oaf, because I had confidence in myself. What bothered me more was how the names I call, what I said in my speech, is when someone called me oaf and I'd want to call you a name back and I couldn't think of a quick retort.
I see.
I was like, damn, man, I'm a failure. I can't bang a back one. I can't do something there. And so what I share is, I've spoken to rooms of 500 people, and I say, raise your hand if you're 100% fearless all the time. Guess how people raise their hand?
Probably zero.
Zero. And so what I'm trying to share is when you're an entrepreneur, when you're trying to grow, and you know this, you have to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And so the definition of getting out of your comfort zone is you're going to be uncomfortable. And so step 2 of the fast forward mindset is how to nip fear in the bud when you're uncomfortable, because ultimately when you're uncomfortable, the first thing you want to do is go back to your comfort zone.
Yeah.
So it's fear is something that we all, every single successful entrepreneur, every single person has to deal with.
Yeah.
And so I, being a self-help addict, being an entrepreneur for the past 11 years, I have created I think it's been very successful for me and a lot of entrepreneurs. And by the way, the book is relevant to everybody on how to nip fear in the bud, specifically so you don't fall back in your comfort zone. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think it manifests itself in a lot of different ways for a lot of different people. And I know there's occasionally, every once in a while, for me, even this is not to say I don't deal with fear. I have a lot of, fears that I have to deal with and stuff like that. And I think it's not necessarily like, in my opinion, and you being the expert on this, you can criticize me if this is a wrongful assumption or wrongful narrative, but it's like, it's not necessarily like eliminating the fear to where you're completely fearless. It's having fear, but having the courage to still move forward regardless of that. Right.
Yeah. Eliminating fear, that's impossible. Like,
right. You're human, right? Yeah.
Fear keeps you safe. Fear keeps you in business.
Yeah, totally.
It's moving forward in spite of the fear.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing of the fast forward mindset, it's how to get out of your comfort zone, how to prevent yourself from falling back in. And the number one way to stay out of your comfort zone longer is by having that focus.
Yeah.
And I share essentially some really interesting stories. So I share some, there's 3 books that's impacted my life that are integrated. There's 20 books integrated into the book itself, but 3 major books that has transformed my life. And I wanted to make sure I shared the main concepts of how they helped me in the fast forward mindset.
Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome, man. Cool. So we're going to talk about it a little bit later on because I want to get back to that. But one of the things I want to talk to is, so you go to law school, you're transitioning, you're now a lawyer. Congratulations, you made it, right? So from that point forward, when did you realize, I guess, even in that space, because I take that back. It makes total sense. But I was going to say maybe in that space, like it needs to be case by case in terms of advice. But I think there's situations high level that people can still glean a lot of information. So as I understand it, the service that you guys pivoted into, and I assume you still provide the actual service as attorneys, right? Like it's not like you just solely do the online platform now in terms of courses, but is it catered to teaching other lawyers, or is it catered to giving people like me advice when I need legal advice?
So I actually started Lawline doing it while I was in law school.
Okay.
So I never practiced law at all. So I started with the product from day one.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
What we do is we provide online continuing legal education for practicing attorneys. It's mandatory. So there's
you're learning what you're learning in law school and then teaching other people the stuff that you're learning, or how does it differ from the education, the academia?
First of all, you don't learn anything in law school.
Okay.
No, it's true though. Like you don't learn how to practice law. You don't learn the updates. And just like, the laws change every year. So we have 130,000 attorneys who've used our platform.
Wow. Congratulations.
3 million courses completed. And I really built the product because I saw a need that wasn't being met, that you would go to a bar association, there'd be 3 old white men sitting at a table in the back and 500 people in the room, and they'd just be sitting there talking. And so we designed the courses video, in a studio designed for, at that time it was just a computer, but now obviously we have an app and it's all designed for the online experience from day one.
Interesting. All right. So, that's fascinating because I actually had this similar experience. My brother-in-law was telling me he's a computer science major, and I was asking him, like, so is this the kind of stuff, you learn how to do like this custom coding? He's like, no, they didn't teach us how to code. I'm like, how do you have a degree in computer science and they don't teach you how to code? So it sounds like it's something kind of similar then. So what do you learn then in law school? You said like they teach you, what is it? They teach you like general principles, or what is it?
Yeah. So definitely the general principles.
Okay.
And you learn basic things.
Okay.
What you learn though is you learn what, people think lawyers know so much more than they know. Yeah. And you're like, it's okay, I get it. And what people say is law school teaches you how to think because it teaches you how to argue. I think that's just a cop out because it didn't really teach me how to think. But you do learn the basics understanding of how the law works and what the basic rules are and what case law is.
Yeah.
But if you want to be a estate planning attorney, you certainly need to take, you don't have enough from law school to start your practice. So you need to take more courses on that topic to become an expert. It is what it is. Like, that
is very interesting.
Yeah.
And I get that there's a lot of complexities to law, right? There's I can't even imagine all of the plethora of information you have to cram into your brain to be able to do what a lawyer does, right? It's unbelievable. So how did you know, though, and maybe you kind of briefly touched on this a little bit, but I'm just envisioning you sitting in class doing this and being like, I'm not prepared to be a lawyer, right? From what we're learning. Is that kind of how it happened and how the idea kind of triggered in your mind as a college student? Or how did you know that was an opportunity?
Yeah. So in law school, what happened was, as I told you, I started a TV show.
Sure.
I was interviewing entrepreneurs. And I remember I was getting a lot. And it was really helpful. And my goal, by the way, was to start a business teaching entrepreneurs. And I didn't know exactly how to sell that or go about that. And I said, well, what if I took my camera and put it on lawyers and turn those interviews or those into courses and sold them to New York?
I love it.
New York, it's mandatory. It was mandatory in other states, but I would have 130,000 attorneys who had to take this.
Yeah.
And so I started doing that and it picked up really, really quickly.
Interesting. Now, are there specificities as it relates to, like, for example, I guess you can do so if I have a program and I'm teaching people, which I do actually, where I teach people kind of some basics of the health and wellness things that I've learned along the way to be a more optimal entrepreneur, right? So I have to be careful about the things that I say because I'm not a, certified licensed medical practitioner, right? So I know there's a lot of laws and regulatory compliance issues and stuff like that in terms of what you can potentially teach. So is that something you guys experience? Just like, hey, there's this new thing and it competes with like the status quo, so to speak. Was there a lot of we had to find how to make this thing work to be legally in compliance with what existed out there to do what you're doing?
So one of the challenges, so for me, I always think of building an enterprise.
Okay.
And so I never wanted to just be in one state or just one area. So early on, I knew we're going to get in as many states as possible. Okay. So we're accredited now, I think, in 46 states.
Okay, so it was an accreditation process then.
Oh yeah, and it's when you have so many states, it gets pretty complicated. And so what we're best in the world. Do you know the book Good to Great?
Yes, of course, amazing book.
So the hedgehog concept.
Yeah.
Flywheel concept. So what we're best in the world at is we can create turnkey online continuing education programs from start to finish in a very short time frame that has like really high quality content with some of the best attorneys in the country. And the reason the attorneys want to do it, just like I'm doing this for you, but it's on a higher level, it gives them credibility. And that's how they get, as a lawyer, it's really hard to get your name out there. And by teaching a course, you're a faculty member, you have credibility. Of course, a lot of them do it just to give back. Teaching the best form of learning. And so early on, we a lot of our attorneys get a lot of cases from teaching with us because we give them a platform to do it.
I can't imagine at some point you're in a courtroom and you realize the guy you're going against is somebody you learned from in the program.
I can't tell you how many times I've had so many. I heard an attorney was in China in a courthouse and somebody looked at him and said, "Oh my God, I just watched your course." And it happens with 3 million courses completed. It happens all the time. Yeah. And so I laugh because I make a lot of our faculty members like mini celebrities in the legal community. It's pretty cool.
How the hell are you guys turning that many videos for the program?
But just to be clear, 3 million courses is 3 million courses served.
Okay. I think you guys had over 3 million videos in your course library. I'm like,
that would be insane. So we have about
recording every single lawyer conversation outside of a courthouse.
We have 1,500 hours today of courses, and every 2 years we never keep anything for more than 2 years. So everything is pretty.
Okay, all right. So that's a lot of turning content then.
You can do the math. So 1,500 courses. Each attorney has to do about 25 hours of courses, and 50,000 attorneys take it. It adds up pretty quickly.
Okay, got it.
1,000 courses.
All right. So like I said to you before we started recording, I may have said it when we started recording, but there's a lot of folks in my audience, a lot of students of mine, a lot of clients of mine. And I was assuming that you had transitioned from lawyer to doing this, but it's just right out of the gates with this. So it's a little bit different than what I was originally going to ask you, but we can still go with it.
But I did transit, just to be clear.
It's a transition. Yeah.
I went to law school not thinking I was doing this. So I completely reframed my thinking.
Sure. Okay. Got
law
it.
school, which was a big deal.
Yeah. Okay. So you're making that transition, right? And one of the things that I think a lot of people realize or they experience is, and you're in law school, dude, you're busy out of your mind, right? So it does apply. How did you effectively manage, right? And maybe the word balance is appropriate. Doing what you are doing to build up your credentials, in law school while still building this platform, because a lot of people, they've got kids, they've got responsibilities, they've got a full-time job. Meanwhile, they're trying to build this really complex potential membership site, right? To start selling, and that's kind of the curse of a service provider is you work on everybody else's business, but your own, right? You just don't have time. It's a mechanic that doesn't work on his own car. So how did you kind of navigate that to work on building this very intensive platform for people in all these various states, accreditation, all these various things you had to do, which is an added level while still finishing law school?
So that is very relevant because I had a very short time frame to make it work.
Yeah.
And it's a bigger story, but just to give you the 30-second version, Lawline was actually started in 1999 by my father and his partner.
Interesting.
A year later, it imploded. This was during 1999 was the first .com boom. It's like pets.com, broadcast.com was sold for $5.7 billion to Yahoo, and all those different things. And so he thought he was going to go public, make millions of dollars and retire with the business. Then the market imploded. The site essentially wasn't making money and he stopped the business. But he never, ever, he had 12 courses on his site and he never took those down. So every year they would make like $10,000. So $1,000 a month, but he was losing money. And so when I started doing the entrepreneur interviews, I said, you know what? So what if I can take this and turn that into a business? And so my dad was not supportive 100% of that because he couldn't do it. And so how do you think I was going to be able to do it?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it was my second year of law school when I started it. So what I did my third year of law school, I took my entire credits and I put them in 2 full days. So I had 8 to like 8 o'clock at night, all classes. Then I had 3 full days of no classes. Those 3 days I worked full time building this business. And what I knew I had to do before I got to the end of school, I had to hire a company to rebuild the site because it was terrible. I had to figure out a partnership idea, and I had to get the accreditation, because as soon as the bar came, if I was not set where I was going to have to get a job at a law firm. And so I spent that entire year working as hard. I studied and took the bar. I passed the bar, and I set up the process so I knew after the bar I can at least give this a go for 12 months or 6 months, and that was the rush that I had to do. So I had to do that. And by the way, I couldn't afford rent. So I went to my dad's office and I took his kitchen. I emptied everything out of his kitchen and turned that into my office. And I can tell you, early on, I was on customer service calls and I had lawyers literally coming in, washing their dishes while I was on the phone. It was funny.
That's what I'm doing the math here and figuring out your days and how you're allocating your time. And I'm like, how are you making money to support yourself? I don't know if it was like a student loan deal, but that makes more sense than you're kind of leveraging whatever you had available to you.
And I try to be transparent about this too. So my dad he had no money growing up. He couldn't afford law school. He drove taxis to pay for law school. They let him in on scholarship. And then he became pretty successful, relatively speaking, for law school. And then one of the first things he did for me was save up money from day one for law school. So I actually didn't have any student loans. And I'm very cognizant having that advantage allowed me more flexibility that I didn't, so many people are beholden to debt, which is terrible.
Yeah.
And especially college debt, law school debt. And so the advantages people have in life, you have to be appreciative of that. That gives you more opportunities, a little bit more freedom. It still was successful from day one, but I would like to believe I would have still taken some of the same risks that I did, but it certainly gave me a little bit more confidence to do it if it didn't work out. And so it's just always kind of, recognizing some advantages that you have over others.
No, totally, absolutely. Okay, so that's the part A, I would think, of many parts, but definitely the part A that I see with a lot of people is, when do I have time to put together this coursework? So it sounds like what you're saying is you've got to readjust your schedule and you've got to bust your ass. Like there's just no way around like getting something off the ground. It's going to require you to really be intentional about blocking out time to work on this thing you're trying to build. So
for me, and I'll just say just to that point, I've always found for me, early in the morning, like literally 5 to 8, and then late at night are my 2 most productive times. So those are the times that I stack.
Okay. All right. So we're blocking time, whatever works for you, mornings, weekends, whatever time you have available to work on this thing. All right. So the next part is, and this is maybe even more important, if not just as important, is understanding, is this something that your market really wants? Right. Because I think a lot of people, they like, yeah, that's the dream, right? They see people selling courses and, running memberships and stuff like that. Like you commented on the book club that we just started not too long ago that we're growing. That's the dream, right? To sell that stuff and kind of do it at scale. How did you know that this is something that aspiring young attorneys, or even people that are already attorneys, how did you know that? Did you have a lot of interviews with people? Obviously you kind of saw, given the fact that you were so immersed. So I talked to a lot of entrepreneurs where it's like, dude, I'm scratching my own itch. Like I knew this was the problem in the industry because I'm in the industry. Like I have a job or I'm an intern. Like I see the issue in the industry, but how did you know that this is something that not only people wanted, but they would also pay for it? What kind of market research did you do?
It was very clear to me because the fact that my dad had 12 courses on his site, they did not focus on it at all.
Yeah.
And the fact that it brought in $1 to me meant something. It brought in, on average about $1,000 a month without any AdWords, without any focus, because people were searching it and found it. So my whole thesis was, if it can make $1,000 a month with nobody spending that much time on it, imagine if I just put half my time in it. It's got to make a little bit more. And so then I started doing research in the industry, and I saw the sites that existed out there did not serve attorneys to the best, and I knew I could build it better and make it more affordable. And so, and the third part, which is a great thing and also a challenge sometimes, it was mandatory. So they have to buy it. So they had to go somewhere. So we're just building, I think, a better mousetrap.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Now, did you have any issues? And this is a huge challenge that I see with a lot of people, and I myself have experienced this as well. Let's call it imposter syndrome, for lack of a better term, given the fact that you never practiced, right? You never got to the point where you practiced, and now you're teaching people what they should be doing to practice. Was that a hurdle that you had to get over? I know for me, being a young entrepreneur, it's like, I'm saying shit that I realize 6 months later I don't believe in anymore, right? And I hope that's never not the case, right? I hope I never get to an age where I'm like, hey, you know what? The last 6 months, like I'm good. Like I know everything that I'm ever going to know. Like I think that's not a point that you ever reach in life, but I think particularly for young people that are just starting out, you really kind of feel that. So was that something like, hey, I'm launching this thing and I'm putting together content and curating this content for people, and I am kind of still figuring things out on my own? It might be different for you because you're using other people, at the content. You're not the one teaching all the content, but I know in some cases, people are the ones actually teaching the content. So
one thing that people really like about the book is 90% of the stories in the book are when I share the struggles that I faced in my mind as you grow your business. And I'd say the 2 biggest struggles that I faced, and we talked about a little bit, was, lack of focus and lack of confidence in myself. And the lack of confidence in myself came from 2 areas. One was leadership, especially like my number 2, because I would hire, people who are very confident in themselves, and leadership is the biggest challenge that most entrepreneurs face. And the second area was, in terms of leadership, was making the right decisions. And I struggle with that, and we all still struggle with that. And those are 2 areas in terms of the fear of failure or having confidence in myself. And lack of focus came from the one thing that most entrepreneurs is their strength, but also their weakness. We're visionaries. So we're like, everything's easy, everything's simple, it can be done really quickly. And that's how I built my business for year after year after year. And what was happening was people would look at me and I'd say, let's do let's go left. And then 6 months later, I'm like, no, let's go right. And that's where the 2 things intersected, where not only was I flip-flopping, and then I was looking like a bad leader. So those were the areas that over year after year where I had the imposter syndrome. And the one really great way I was able to see all that was I journaled literally for 7-8 years online. And for my book, I read every single journal, and I was able to see, I couldn't recognize some of the people, the person who I was then, I couldn't recognize myself.
Yeah. Which is awesome. That's a great, like I always say, if you look back 6 months and you don't think like, man, I was kind of an idiot. Like you're probably not growing as fast as what maybe you should be as an entrepreneur. Cause that is part of the game, is like, how fast can you grow and mature and everything else. And I think something that helped me get over it, and maybe this was the case for you, is like, you don't have to be everything to everyone. You just have to be something to someone that's one step behind you so they can take that next step. And I was thinking to myself, like, oh my God, if I put stuff out into the world, someone that's more advanced than me is going to recognize, hey, you know what? This person's young. They're still figuring things out. Like, this isn't my person to follow. But someone, we talked about Brian Wish, who connected us together, who's a former mentee, well, still a mentee of mine, young guy, really awesome guy. Like, I just needed to be, in this particular case, using him as an example, I just need to be one step of where he was so that he could model that example, right? And I think we kind of overcomplicate things, thinking that putting stuff out in the world means we're trying to teach the world. And that's not the case.
Yeah. I mean, teach it to me. The reason I love mentoring, because I love helping others, but I also learn so much in doing that. Because by the way, when you mentor and you see the same people going through the same things that you went through, you start to see, like, you realize coaches aren't like so smart because they're so smart. They're so smart because they've seen their clients do the same shit time and time again. And so, like, okay, this is what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. I mean, that's why I joined EO. That's why I started the TV show. That's why I wrote a book. Like, sharing is the best way to put, to not only to network, but also to clarify your message and to help others.
Okay. All right. So really important, because there are people that sell one-off programs, right? And it's wham, bam, right? Like, I'm an affiliate for Marie Forleo. She sells B School. It's $2,000, just donezo, right? And that's once a year. That's what she does. Sounds like you have a membership model, which is what I have, which is a lot of people aspire to build, because you've got that monthly recurring revenue, which is amazing, right? So that said, there's a lot of things that play into that, right? It's not about like just filling up the bucket. You might have massive churn and you're filling it up and spending a ton of money to fill it up and losing people, and you're just breaking even on that thing, right? So what have you guys done from a business standpoint? Obviously, we talked about you transitioning into different modalities in terms of like going from potential service provider to having a membership or to having coursework. What have you done, not just to grow that community, but also really encourage people to lower your churn as much as possible?
It's a conversation we have almost every single day.
I'm sure.
And one of the things that I like to think about is, how do I create the Amazon Prime strategy for continuing legal education? And what I mean by that is, we all know Amazon Prime, 2-day free shipping. But if you actually look at the list of services that they provide, including video, it's probably about 100 different things you get when you do Amazon Prime. And some are more meaningful to others than that. And so when we offer continuing legal education, it's great because everyone needs it. The challenge is it's also a commodity because everybody provides it. And sometimes you only need it once every 3 years. Yeah. So to incentivize that person to come back year 2 and year 3 is really challenging. So we offer a lot of value added content that's not mandatory, that helps them do marketing and build their business. We offer public profiles that allow them to get more search engine marketing juice, to get more clients, to get more exposure. And so we're constantly figuring out, how do we make this a better product? So even if they don't need their courses this year. And then finally, of course, we have really great courses to show that you should be taking courses on a regular basis. But that is the challenge, is definitely that not everybody needs to get it done every year. And if we can just increase our retention or reduce our churn, we're talking about serious revenue opportunity.
Yeah. Well, that is the big challenge with memberships, is that people just leave. And then also too, you're talking about adding features. And sometimes people, they do that. And that you talked about earlier, you mentioned a point that's really important, talking about hedgehog, right? It's like, how do you still keep the essence of what that embodies and then add features, but don't lose sight of the hedgehog, right? And for those who don't know, that's like what you do better than anybody else, like focused on that is what basically a hedgehog means in short. But that's really a tough thing to navigate, because people do get lost in features.
It's such a challenge because you model, if you look at all the successful companies, they've all done such a good job in building completely different things that they didn't have originally. Look at Google, Gmail, and search. I mean, I'm sorry, Gmail wasn't even their first thing, it was search. Yeah. And now look at all the services. So you're absolutely right, because I can tell you 11 years in doing this, I have yet to, I'm just being honest, I have yet to really hit a home run from something that's not our headshot concept. That's something that's, it's been singles and doubles. So I'm due for a home run.
Yeah.
It's really difficult.
Okay. So how did you arrive at those various things that you were adding in terms of value adds, in terms of features? Was it a matter of having conversations? Did you have beta users, the people that you kind of give a discount to or give it to for free? Now, I don't like when people give a membership for free because they're not invested. And I've never had any time where I've given a scholarship or given something free to somebody where they take it seriously, right? It's just, if they're not financially invested, even if it's $5 a month, they're just not there, right? It's just different. So is that something you guys do, is give people a discount or whatever it looks like, and then have those conversations about things that you guys are thinking? How do you guys arrive at the features you're going to add and what's working and what's not?
I love this interview because it's not the typical interview I do, because you're actually asking about like running and building a business,
sure, which
I love talking about. I'm smiling because I have some people in my company who would love to be answering these questions, and I can share with you a handful of things that we do.
Yeah.
We have so we regularly survey our customers through a tool called Hotjar.
Yep. Oh, I love Hotjar. God, Hotjar is it's a cheat code. It's a cheat code. It's amazing.
Yeah. So just to explain it to anyone who doesn't know, it's essentially a little bot that pops up and asks you 3 questions. You know, what do you like best about our site, or do you like this product? And we've gotten so much great. We have thousands of courses being completed every day, so we get a lot of responses.
That's good.
Every course that you complete, there's a valuation to fill out, and there's an area to give feedback.
So
and we get thousands of feedback there every day. We are really big on data. So not only do we use Google Analytics, and we use something called, what is it called? It's where it tells you where someone's clicking on the screen, so you can see where it's hot and see how the user.
You can do that with Hotjar too.
Can you? Okay, so we have so many tools that kind of intersect with each other, and so we look to see what works and what doesn't work, and then of course one of the things that I used to run the business by, my COO, who's amazing, Sigal Barnes, you're amazing if you ever listen to this. I used to run the business a lot by my gut. I'm like, I know what I want and I know what it is, and so it works, but not all the time. And so because the problem is, as soon as you hit a wall, your gut is not, you can't say that anymore. So as soon as you have the first wall and it doesn't work, you can't be like, well, I thought it would. And so everything that we do right now, we put together a full-fledged plan with the data that supports it, from whether it's our customers or our analytics or the marketplace. And we at least use that to give us confidence. So, because we're going to hit challenges. So as soon as we get those challenges, we say, well, here's the data that shows it. Let's keep moving forward. And so that's my lesson. It's not that you're right. You just need something to give you confidence to keep your commitment to do what you said you were doing.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people play it in a couple of different ways, where it's either like a gamification type approach where, there's certain badges or certificates that you can actually download and add to your portfolio, whatever, if you complete certain courses and what have you. People have little activation triggers where let's say you haven't logged in a few days, and hey, you only finished half of your course, like come back and finish it, whatever. So there's a lot of different ways you can go about it, but that is the challenge, right? It's keeping people constantly engaged, especially like what you said, when you don't have the frequency there, but also then assessing, like, are we just doing a bunch of stuff that nobody cares about, or is it stuff that people care about? So it's so funny. Sometimes I feel like, because there's the core things that we've done and we talk about it, sometimes I feel like most of the business is like this, and like kind of just running in circles, and like, because we're trying things and they all don't work to what you want, but then you have the core that's being consistent, that it's the core that puts out so much profit and revenue that allows you to keep trying things. And I gotta tell you though, like, I wouldn't want to be in a business where we weren't trying these things. It's sometimes frustrating, but because you like you spend a year on something that is a double. And then here's where you struggle. You said, if I just spent a year on that, and I put that, and instead of doing that, I spent a year on my core, would that be higher? And that's always the challenge for us, is we know our core can continue to increase so much more. So we're constantly going back and forth on that. And
it's very important to us. And by the way, we're driven by delivering a great product to our customer. Our core purpose is to give personal freedom to our attorneys, whether if they want to grow their practice or just get the credits done and move on to something else. That is what drives us first and foremost.
Well, you said something that's really important, and I'll go back to kind of tie it into something you said earlier when you talked about one of the things you struggle with early on is focus, right? Because entrepreneurs, or especially early, it's this idea, and that's great, right? But as you matured, right, and you just said we sunk a year into this and it didn't work, right? So or it was only a single and you expect to be a home run. So how do you know, hey, I'm being too entrepreneurial, too idea versus when it's time to actually take a real pivot? Because that's a really tough thing to navigate, and knowing, hey, we need to cut our losses and move on. At this point, we're being masochists, just trying to make this thing work so we're not bouncing all over the place, versus when is it time to say, hey, it is time for new ideas. We need to get back to the drawing board. How do you guys, do you assess that with the data? How do you guys figure out that's when it's time to, which one is which course of action needs to be taken?
So the short answer is 4 years ago, we hired a coach. He was a Gazelles coach, and we're still working with him. So Gazelles is the outfit, Vern Harnish, who does Scaling Up, the book. So they have a coach platform that works with them. We essentially took Scaling Up, the book. Have you read Scaling Up?
Yeah, it's a great book.
And we use everything in that in our company. So we have quarterly priorities, annual initiatives, coaching sessions. And so that gave us structure in our company. And so that freed us up from so by just doing that on purpose, it slowed us down as a company, and it slowed me down, because once you set a priority in the beginning of the quarter, I can't then a month later say, but I want to do this and I want to do that. So it's a good thing, but I also started feeling myself being frustrated, because as the visionary or as the CEO, I was like, want to do these things. So I was trying to do them on the side. So about a year and a half ago, there's another great, do you know Traction by Gino Wickham? Traction?
Yes.
So
I saw he wrote you a little something about your book, by the way, or your little acknowledgement.
My book. So I got Vern and Gino endorsing the book. So
those are heavy hitter names, man. Good job.
And Hal wrote the Hal.
I saw that. Hal wrote that. Yeah, that's awesome.
I feel really proud about that. And so there's a book that they wrote called Rocket Fuel.
Yep. Oh, it's a great book.
So we've implemented the visionary integrator.
Okay.
Clearly visionary. And so if you read the rules of the rocket fuel, and essentially, to those who don't know about it, it's every single successful company, if you look to it, had a visionary who was more the big picture person. This is the CEO and the integrator who would implement that. And so, but a lot of those aren't done well. And they said, like, a really great example is Disney, Walt and Roy. Walt gets all the credit, but Roy was the one who really knew what to do. And so one of the rules of the integrator is the integrator usually knows exactly what's going on and how it should be done. So if there's issues going on, our COO, Sigal, she, based on the data and how's it going, she has the final word.
Okay. So you take it out of your hand.
We talk it all out, but if there's usually we're able to decide on our own, like as a team. But if let's just say there's a tie and we're stuck and we're indecisive, she has the final word, as is her role of the integrator on if we should move forward. But there are some things that that make a couple $100,000 and they're very profitable, and you're like, do we keep it or not? And sometimes you keep pushing it forward. But that has helped us become a lot more decisive.
Yeah. Well, you said something that's really important. And this is obviously, some people aren't to a point where they have an entire team where they can rely on, or they don't even have, an integrator, which really, really hard to find. Actually, if you read that book, it'll show you the statistics actually show you that there's more visionary type people than there are integrators. I would think that it'd be the other way around, but like, it's really, really hard to find a true integrator, which is fascinating.
Speak to that point really quickly. The reason it was so important, I went in the fast forward mindset, I share literally in 6 years, I had 3 COOs that each relationship every 2 years imploded. And I realized they imploded for different reasons, but all the same themes. Okay. And when I read that in the book, I'm like, oh, okay. And so I realized that. And Sigal, who's been with Lawline for about 7 years now,
that's good.
He has such trust with it. And she's an attorney as well. She is one of the smartest people that I have ever met. And she's an attorney. Like, I don't know, if you want to get down and dirty about data and analytics and moving forward, I would have her and Rich, who's our VP of product and marketing. Yeah. even off a podcast, you will enjoy the conversation with them. And so, I realized right away how lucky I was to have somebody who I trusted and built it up. And I didn't feel bad about the mistakes that we had in the past.
They are a rarity. So anyways, yeah. Well, so one thing you did say though, for those that don't have a team, what I was kind of alluding to was the slow down comment. Really, really important. I think young entrepreneurs, they want to fly out of the gates and they feel like every day they've got to be flying 100 miles an hour. And sometimes it's the swings that you don't take. It's the preparation for the swing that you're going to take, right? Planning, filling out, like you said, with gazelles. I think that's a great plan. I use a full focus planner every single day. This thing stays by my side everywhere I go. There's not a single thing I do that's not documented here first. So I think doing those things and analyzing and giving some thought and mindfulness to it before you just start throwing stuff has really personally helped me. And I don't know if that's something you would agree with or not. Well, you said it, so I assume you would.
One of my favorite lines is people generally overestimate what they can get done in 1 year and underestimate what they can get done in 10 years.
Yeah.
And after being in business for 11 years, I get it.
Yeah.
I used to think every idea I had to be done within 6 months.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. And I remember we were first introduced to full focus planner. I don't know if it's something you use or not, or you're familiar with it, but we kind of just understanding the principles of like what people should. So my wife and I, we're both entrepreneurs. We're very type A, very driven. I'm sure a lot of people can tell by listening. We have a lot of intensity. But when he's talking about just focus on a big 3 for the day, I'm like, am I going to do 3 things today? Like I'm only going to do, X amount this quarter. And like, to me, that was craziness. Like what you said, it's like, dude, everything should be done in a week, and it's just, anyway. So things are more methodical when you plan them out over long terms. Things take longer than you think. There's more, moving parts and pieces that need to be addressed and stuff like that to really get it out of the gates and not just be doing things.
So I don't know, what is it called? Focus planner?
Yeah. Full focus planners. Michael Hyatt's full focus planner.
Okay. So I've never heard of that, but the 3 things a day, have you heard the story behind that?
Maybe.
I think it's Rockefeller or somebody, back in the day was trying to get their company. I think it was Rockefeller trying to get his top guy at his company to be more productive. And he brought the consultant in and he goes, I have one thing and pay me whatever you think it's worth. He couldn't figure it out. And what he said to him is like the day before, and this is 60 years ago.
It's crazy.
All you need to do is write out your top 3 things for the next day. But the most important thing is you have to put it in priority order. And so I'll tell you what I do every day, and not every day, but every day that I do it. So maybe 3 times a week is in the beginning of the day, I take a white piece of paper. So this is good for the visionaries because not everybody is going to be as focused. So you take a white piece of paper, you put a line in the center. On the left-hand side, you write things to do. And this is where you do the brain dump. This can be things, it could be literally like things you're doing next month, next year, or today. Just put it all down. And then on the right-hand side, you put 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., all the way to 5 p.m. And you take 3 of those things, or as many as you think you can, you start filling them in the slots. And you realize at that moment, you can only probably do 3 or 4 things effectively. And I used to think I can do 15 things in a day. And you talk to people right now, and you're like, okay, I'll do that next. I'm like, no, you won't. You don't have the time to do it next. And so that process of time blocking your day, I don't know if you do actually time block it.
Yeah, it's built into this thing. You have to do that. You have to allocate not only what's important, but also when you're going to do it throughout the day.
Yeah. So it's the same concept.
It's the same concept. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's something I actually
who's the guy who does it?
Michael Hyatt.
Is he, he's not a pilot, is he?
No, he's used to work at I think he worked for like a big publishing house. He's now an author. He wrote Your Best Year Ever. He just launched Free to Focus. He's big in the online space.
Yeah, I'm sure I've seen stuff.
Yeah. Big time author. He lives in I believe Nashville in Tennessee. Or anyway, big. Cool. You probably know if you looked him up. You're probably like, yeah, I've seen him before.
You know what my current struggle is?
What's that?
Just to flip it around. I've sold 1,000 copies of the book. We got over 50 reviews, 56 reviews. Got a lot of great feedback. How do I get it to 10,000? How do I get it to 100,000? How do I expand that in a different area, in a different way, while it's not my full-time business, right? I'm still running my company. I'm moving about does it have to be even when it is a full-time business, And so I don't know if you have any guidance
Mm-hmm.
from your experience getting, 2 million downloads. And so, when I've asked this question many times, and unfortunately, I assume you're not going to say the same thing. There's no secret answer. Sometimes it just, you get the right momentum and you get it moving the right way.
It depends on, so right now I would say one of the biggest areas of opportunity to sell things is definitely Facebook ads, because honestly, for what the product, depending on the price point, books are really good for Facebook ads, but I would say it's contingent upon what assets you have available to you. Right. So for me, obviously building a big audience on a podcast, that would make sense for me. Right. Some people might be a YouTube channel, or they go guess and use other people's platforms and leverage that. So I think it really is contingent upon what you have available at your disposal, which is not unlike any opportunity. Yeah. I think a lot of people, I know LinkedIn is a big platform right now in terms of being able to reach people organically with video. So that's a good, if you've built up 3,000 connections.
The big struggle, and then we don't have to talk about it now, we can take this offline, is it's being authentic versus just putting yourself out there because you're trying to get the views. And so I think, like, the day when you really are putting the content out there and you stop caring, it's really tough to be that person, because you look at the likes, you look at the view count.
That's where people are missing out big time, is they have an agenda that revolves around them making sales versus them actually leading with value. Yep. So I think value-driven content is the solution. And then with a CTA at the end to be actually say, hey guys, look, genuinely, this is what I'm teaching you. No pressure. Here's the book. If you want to pre-order it, if you want to take a look, it's $10, right? Or whatever. So
what do you charge for your book club?
$29 a month. So that's a weekly live stream. That's a book a month. Now people pay for the book, they buy it wherever they want, but there's also weekly training and a weekly web class at the end of every single month. Is usually an hour and a half to 2 hours that involves Q&A at the end.
Do you know who Andrew Johnson is?
No.
Optimize.me?
No, I don't.
Take a look at it.
Okay, I will.
It'll be a game changer for you to take a look at.
Cool. I'll look into it.
Cool.
Yeah. So we'll
back to the program.
I did have one more question that I want to talk more about the book, because you just brought the book up, and I want to make sure we give it its due diligence here. So in terms of, I'll flip it back on you then, in terms of growing a membership, right? So what has been the main course for you guys? I know a lot of people that come on the show, depending on what they do, right? It's word of mouth, or it's maybe it's marketing, email marketing, podcasting, what's the main way that you guys, so with memberships it's different. People don't like to go straight from cold to buying a membership, right? It's not like they're buying, I said this before, it's not like they're buying a Netflix or signing up for Netflix. Like, usually they want to buy something that they feel like is an investment that's usually less than $10 or at least less than $20 before they sign up for a monthly subscription, contingent on the price point. So what has been the main, I guess, course of action you guys have gone to get people to sign up, or how do you guys primarily market your specific membership and contingent upon that price point?
So right now, this is recent in the past year, we offer a free trial for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Or 10 days. You can watch any course that you want. You cannot get credit for it though. So you can complete it, you can get the value, but you just can't get your certificate. So it allows you to test drive the product and make sure it's what you need. So that's the standard thing to do. Besides that, it's ultimately, it's a mandatory product that attorneys need, that generally wait till the last minute. Our site, our content, everything about the way we put it out there, I believe looks better than anyone else and has the credibility and testimonial. And generally, attorneys don't have time to dilly-dally and search 10 different sites. So if you get attorneys and they see your site and they see the value for the price, that's the way we pull them in. And our subscription's yearly, not monthly.
Okay.
So it has its ups and downs for that, but so you're getting full access for the full year. And so it's a lot more cash up front for us. So that's the benefit, but the churn is higher.
But do you guys use like lead magnets to get people in, like with free content, like a PDF download or something like that? And then eventually through your funnel, you take them through the process of actually signing up for the trial, or?
Yeah. So we do that with our enterprise sales, because those are $5,000-$10,000 sales where it takes longer lead cycle.
Okay.
For this type of thing, it's a very B2C model. So it's very straightforward, and it's because it's mandatory, it's less of a need to do that. But certainly we have access. Again, like I said, I think 75% of people now use the free trial. So that to me is, and they can, and usually they, within within 10 minutes of signing up, of just checking it out, they usually convert.
But are they discovering you organically via like Google search or something, or how are they discovering you guys?
So our top methods, still email, still number one.
Of course, email's where the money is.
I mean, we've invested a tremendous amount in email over the years.
But are you collecting those, or how did you acquire those emails? What was the
buy list from the bar associations?
Okay.
So here's why we have an advantage over like.
Is that GDPR compliant to do that now still?
So is it GDPR compliant? From what I understand, I'm a lawyer, but I don't know this type of law.
Yeah. Well, you're not selling outside the States anyways. You're not selling to people outside the United States.
True, but we want to be GDPR compliant because we don't want to mess around.
Sure.
But from what I understand, as a lawyer, your information is public knowledge because it has to be proof that you're an attorney. So bar associations.
Okay.
Because you need to know, you got to be able to verify it somewhere.
Sure.
So all that is on the up and up. And so over the years, we've had so many people subscribe and sign up and do different things. But we know at least who every attorney is in the country. And so over the years, doing this 11 years, we've built up a pretty big following. But then our organic, we spent a lot of energy and time on organic. So we are very SEO friendly. So we've been doing this for 11 years. We have a lot of great stuff on the site. So SEO and AdWords are right behind email. And of course, word of mouth is that's we have a whole bucket called like direct or unsure, because those are people who just go to Lawline or buy again or whatever. So those are the main sources. And then of course there's referral sites, there's other traffic, there's different areas. And we used to, for years, we did direct mail. And it was really effective 11 years ago. And every year it would just be less.
I don't even look anymore. It just goes straight to the trash. So I get that. Yeah. Interesting. Well, that's very cool. And the good thing is you're in a market, speaking of markets, you're in one of those markets that's going to be around forever. It's not going anywhere. And you've got what my friend Ryan Levesque would call PWM, players with money, right? So you're in a really, really good, like, sweet spot market there with that. So
the downside of the market is very fragmented because it's mandatory. There's a lot of players. So there's mom and pop shops, there's bar associations.
That's true.
Big public companies. We have a sweet spot because we're not a mom and pop and we're not a bar association and we're not a big billion-dollar company who doesn't really care about this. We are the biggest in this space who can provide the most value and the most content and do it really easily for the attorneys. We actually just started using Trustpilot.
Cool.
Trustpilot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize how cool it was. So in the past few months, we got 202 reviews from Trustpilot, because they send it to your customers automatically. And we're like a 9.7 out of 10 or whatever that is from 200 people have reviewed it. The reviews are phenomenal.
Interesting.
And that's what I live for, man. Like you build something that people love. And by the way, I don't even feel like I built it anymore. I feel so disconnected from the building and the maintaining of the company. That's even more inspiring for me. That I'm not involved in the day-to-day at all. And I see so many people who love what we're doing. And that's the cool. That is the best feeling as an entrepreneur. That is
the cool place to get to. It is amazing. For people, when they get to that point, it is very, very cool. And congratulations for that, because that is an amazing place to be. All right, cool. So we want to wrap this thing up, but I want to give you a couple of minutes to kind of talk a little bit more. I know we've touched on the book. What can readers hope to gain? Specifically, we've got an entrepreneurial driven audience here. What's going to be the big transformation, or what are they going to get out of this, and how is it going to benefit them? And the book is called The Fast Forward Mindset, guys. That link is going to be included below. So
what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the main purpose of the book. And instead of talking about my book, I'm going to talk about the 3 books that had the most impact on me. And and I'll do it. How much time? So I know how quickly to speak.
As much time as you want, brother.
Cool. So the Fast Forward Mindset is about how to essentially be more fearless and focused to accelerate your success by getting outside your comfort zone and staying there longer. And the reason I call it the Fast Forward Mindset, it's about fast forwarding your impact on the world around you. And the reason I wrote the book was I just turned 40. And I realized there's so many things that was on my bucket list and that I thought I was going to do, whether it was having a $100 million company or traveling the world or having an impact in my community, running for office, that if I didn't start doing something, like those are just gonna be stories in my head for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh shit, how do I fast forward this and make it actually happen? And so that's the framework of the book. And there's 3 steps to doing that. And I can tell you, it's the story of my entrepreneurship journey and going through that. And 3 books that had an impact on me that are integrated into this. Number 1 is The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. Have you read that book?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So principle number 54 is keep your agreements.
Yeah.
And that's essentially keep your commitments. And what I remember in 2011 when I read the book, I really resonated with that, because as an entrepreneur, I was canceling on meetings all the time. And worst case, I was doing it 10 minutes before. I would do things like this and just be like, I'm so busy, man, I can't do this. And I would think, well, my employees understand I'm a busy entrepreneur, instead of like, I care about my employees or whoever I was. And think about how many people cancel on you for lunch and for dinner and how you think about them. So I was doing that. I stopped doing that cold turkey, and I wasn't cleaning the dishes at home. And I said I would clean the dishes, and I stopped doing that cold turkey. And the hardest thing that I could think of was I wasn't take care of myself physically. I had kids, and I 3-year-old twins at the time, was running a marathon. But there's a story in the book that I just wanted to share. And maybe I won't share all 3 books just based on timing, but he talks about a class that he teaches. So, he teaches, I guess, leadership classes, and everyone signs an agreement not to come late to the class. And 3 days later, of course, several people come late, and he says to the students, you broke your agreement. And one of the students shoots back at him, well, it's not my fault. I can't control traffic. And he says to him, what would you do if I told you that if you were late, somebody you love would get killed? And he goes, well, if somebody I would love would get killed, then it's my son outside. If somebody you would love would get killed, then I would never leave the class. And while it's, just sleep here all night. And while it's extreme, it's designed to show you have more control over the commitment. Yeah. And so I decided to run the marathon, which I never ran more than 3 miles. And I broke through my walls, and I got through it, and I finished 3 marathons in 3 years.
That's awesome.
And every time I hit a wall, every time since then, whenever I make a commitment, I'm telling you, I really do this. I say to myself, if my child's life, who was trying to get in the door just now, life was on the line, would I keep it? And keeping commitments is one of the things that has made me more successful over the past 11 years or 10 years than anything else. And I can't tell you how many people I know in the world who break commitments left and right. Like they say it knowing they're gonna break it. So in chapter 8 of the book, literally it's called Keep Your Commitments. And I talk about that's step 3. In order to stay out of your comfort zone longer, you need to have focus. And the best way to keep focus is when you make a commitment, you're going to do whatever it takes to keep it. And I go through that a little bit.
That's awesome.
That was one book. Again, I know we're late on time, so I can share the other 2 books, or I can tell you later on. It's up to you.
Dude, go for it, man. We're good. There's no restriction on time here.
Cool. Podcast, man. Like so we can do whatever we want.
This is I'll check with my boss, but I'm pretty sure it's okay. It's a joke.
No, you froze for that second. I was laughing. All right. So book number 2 is from Dale Carnegie. And Dale, the main book that everyone knows is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Great book. It's not the book I'm talking about. The book I'm talking about is How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Did you read that book?
No, I haven't.
Talk about fear and worry. This book will transform anyone's life who reads it. And it was written 70 years ago. And I'm going to share one formula in the book that he says in the book. If you follow this formula, it will reduce your fear 50% overnight. And it's true. I'm going to share it with you right now. So when you are concerned about something, you need to think about, you need to determine what it is. And then you need to determine what is the worst case scenario that could happen. Right? Because a lot of times people worry about things and they don't even know what they're worrying about. They're just like, I don't know, like, what if I don't get that client? Well, I don't know. You need to determine what's the worst case scenario if you don't get that client. Step number 2 is once you determine it, Usually, first of all, it's usually not as bad as you think. So that helps a lot.
Totally.
You need to accept it. You need to accept, all right, I lost a client. It's done. I'm already there. I'm already out of business. I need to start a new business. And number 3, you need to start doing things to improve on that worst case scenario over time. And that's it. And that will help you make more decisions. That will help you move forward in other things. So that book is integrated into one of the chapters in the book, but I go into a lot more detail about that. And the third book was actually Hal Elrod's book, The Miracle Morning.
Yeah. I just bought it. I haven't read it. I don't know why I haven't read it, but I just bought it.
Yeah. So and I'll share with you what was so impactful for me about the book is the reason that book was so impactful, it actually changed my behavior literally overnight. And I didn't think I was a morning person, and I would literally wake up and hit alarm, snooze. And he shares 3 things that transform my morning. And literally these 3 things, it'll transform you right now. So number 1, do you set alarm?
Currently, I do not, because health issues that I'm dealing with. So that's a big no-no for me right now. Okay. But previously, yes. But the thing is, I've hacked my sleep enough to a point, and this is a total side tangent at this point, but I've hacked my sleep enough that I wake up at the same time every day, even without an alarm.
Yeah. And so most entrepreneurs probably are already there, but I'll share with you, for me, when I started doing this was, you take your phone, if you use it as an alarm, and you put it walking distance from your bed.
Yeah.
So you can just go tap it and hit snooze.
Yeah.
And so when you get up, you wake up. Number 2, you brush your teeth right away. I got to tell you, when you brush your teeth, it's like caffeine in the morning.
Yeah.
Not go back to sleep after you brush your teeth.
Yeah.
And number 3, you drink a full glass of water.
Yeah.
Then for the next hour, he has something called Savers, which is a whole 6 different things you can do, which is amazing. But for me, the big lesson was the next hour, and I usually do it like 5:30 or so, or 6, depending on the day. You focus on yourself. You don't read emails. You don't do work stuff. You read a book. You do exercise. You watch some videos you want to catch up on. Anything that's yourself. I can't tell you that the mornings, those, especially the kids, it's like my only time I have to myself to really get stuff done.
Yeah.
And I usually journal. And so that's why that was so transformational. And the cool story behind that is the book was so transformational for me. I reached out to Hal in 2013, and his book, it was just getting sold. It was early on, and we ended up connecting. I ended up having him teach a course in
That's awesome.
EO in New York. He flew to New York for EO.
That's awesome.
And then I had him come to my office to film a course, to do another course there. And I said to Hal, let me film it. Let's see what happens. I filmed it. I put it online. We got 500,000 views. Top viewed video, and we've stayed in touch ever since. And so that's a great example of you see somebody who you want to connect with, and you do it. And then he wrote the forward for the book, and I think his book now has been sold 1 million times.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And it has 3,700 reviews. And it's just, I remember early on, dude, he was 10,000. This is year 2, and we were doing mastermind groups to help him figure out how to grow it. And so
that's so crazy.
A good book is a good book. So
yeah,
that's the deal. So thank you for letting me share. So those stories are integrated into the book, but mostly just I create a framework that makes it really easy for anyone who's either an aspiring entrepreneur or wants to become an entrepreneur, or somebody who's stuck as an entrepreneur, or you don't even have to be an entrepreneur. You can just be in your career and you want to figure out how to get out of your comfort zone more. I will 100% stand behind it. I'm so confident in that this book will have an impact on people. I just need to figure out how to get it out there. So, and I'm going to send you a copy, and I'm going to keep calling you every day until you read it. It's also on Audible now too.
Awesome.
So I'm super pumped about the dude who read it. He's a good voice.
Cool, guys. All right. And I will drop that, like I said, I will drop the link for it below. Would you prefer people to go? You have a website for it, right? It's fastforwardmindset.com. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Fastforwardmindset.com. Go through that to get it. I know people really rely on Amazon, but doesn't it benefit you more if they come through you versus Amazon? And somebody was saying it doesn't matter either. All right, sweet. So we'll include the Amazon link and we'll include fastforwardmindset.com. Is there any other way people, if they want to reach out and connect with you, that they can follow you on Twitter or connect with you on social or connect with you on LinkedIn or whatever works best for you?
All that. And I'll give you my email. If anyone actually gets this far, they deserve my email. It's David@lawline.com.
David@lawline.com. All right. I'll include that as well. All right, man. I enjoyed the conversation. Sorry, I went a little bit long. I'm sure you got tons of stuff to do yourself, but thanks for hanging with me so long.
I didn't realize it's 6:15. Oh my God. That was cool. So look, it's good stuff. And we got to know each other and I really appreciate it. So
awesome.
I'm going to learn a lot from you over the years. I know it.
Sounds great. All right, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.